Yeah, I think we'll kick it off. Good morning, everyone. So welcome to the webinar for milk price protection. This has actually been one of our more popular webinars that we've hosted, so it probably is a reflection of the interest I think that's happening in the market, and hopefully in the content and what we're talking about today. So great to have everyone sort of tuning up, and as we say, recording will be sent out as well to those who have registered but can't make it. Today we wanted to spend some time talking about the market dynamics that exist today, some of the changes that have recently been announced to the market, both by ourselves but also by parties like Fonterra, and for this audience, really the opportunities that that's going to create for the finance professionals supporting our farming clients today. We're going to touch on our partnership with StoneX that we've recently announced, and we're going to talk about what Figured's role is really in looking at the current market and perhaps some of the challenges that we have seen and why we're stepping into this. We're going to allow plenty of time for Q&A at the end, so there'll be plenty of time to sort of answer questions at that point. And like any good webinar, we'll save a special offer right at the very end relating to this. So yeah, look, let's kick it off. My name's Chris Slow. I'm the Chief Financial Officer here at Figured. Have been leading the financial services component of Figured. Got Ty Phillips here, who is in my team and helping me doing a lot of the work really. Ty is here to help us sort of step through, what the Figured product will be today, and we've got Matt Manning joining from StoneX. To help sort of talk about who StoneX are and perhaps what they see in the market and why they are interested in this partnership as well. So so without further ado, I think we'll kick on. Look, I think this is probably no surprise to anyone. The only constant really we see in sort of the dairy sector is change in prices, and it's not just swings across seasons. We are seeing swings within seasons as well. So this chart's a useful reminder of, the fluctuations of the prices, but also where the opening forecast was in the season and where it ended up. So really volatility is a constant change. The impact of this typically today for farmers is in bearing the impact on margins. And we've got varying forecasts out in the market already today. Dairy NZ sort of forecasting $10 next season. The futures market forecasting $9.15. But the reality is probably one tweet away from another change happening in the market. So look, volatility is just a constant within the New Zealand dairy sector. So interestingly enough, when we sort of look at the financial risk profile of a dairy farm, more than half of that risk actually sits in the milk price itself. Other key drivers behind that really are milk production, interest rates, feed and fert, and then you've really got 85% of the risk exposure sitting across a few components in a farm, and that information's from sort of Dairy NZ data over a period of years. Which is interesting, and interesting for Figured when we looked at this area. The context is that actually the level of total production that is protected or price protected in New Zealand is very low. I think to end of 2024 it was sitting around 15%. And the biggest contributor towards that is the Fonterra fixed milk price product, which is probably about half of that. And then the remainder really is typically, and it's a general statement, but typically used by larger corporate farms. So the actual percentage of farming operations that are protecting their price today is actually very, very low. And if we contrast that to sort of other commodity markets or even markets like dairy in the US, where 70 to 80% of the market is price protected. The New Zealand dairy market really is an outlier in that. So in that sort of scene, if you like, and the market sort of volatility changing, low levels of price being protected, really the levers that farmers have played with in the past is to adjust accordingly, and adjusting accordingly means dropping your operating spend. It's changing your capital profile, going from principal and interest to interest only. It's deferring capital investments. It's delaying R&M. So really all in response to, the underlying sort of truth that, the revenue line is constant, but the levers that are changing to respond are really in their cost structures. And so we're sort of asking the question, well, what about, why aren't we protecting revenue more today, given that would allow us to have more control of our operations? And so this kind of got to the crux of why Figured really felt like we had a role to play in this conversation. And a big part of that came down to these four key components. Firstly, generally a lack of understanding in the market of what the options are, not just options, what are the products available for people to use, varying levels of complexity in those products as well, which aren't easily digestible for those of us who aren't in the non-financial, professional world. So really, just a broad sort of training and education and awareness of the market sort of we see as being required. We heard concerns around sort of the cost and the cash implications of the products that were out in the market, things like having to pay margin calls on futures. We heard that there was a underlying worry about missing out on the higher price. When you see that volatility chart and you see the price jumping around a bit and you're locking in a price that's say $8.50 last year, then actually when the price is sitting at $10, you're not feeling great, and so there's that underlying worry about missing out. And sort of I guess the other area which we've seen very clearly is once you get your head through those sort of top three components, who do I talk to? How do I access this? How do I do it easily? And really, we see a lack of sort of independent specialists in this area supporting our farming clients. So as a result, farmers tend to respond in suboptimal ways, we believe, to swings in milk prices. So it's a scene setter. I think what was interesting recently, was Fonterra stepping in and announcing a change to their risk management products as well, which is great to see. So I think they're acknowledging these sort of, I guess, these concerns earlier and bringing out a whole range of new products from June of this year. So they're adding another season to their fixed milk price, which is great. They are bringing through a sort of milk price protection product for the current season, which is great, and they're bringing in the ability to sort of lock in a minimum and maximum price for the current season. So really bringing more options for farmers to consider to the table, still capping it within their existing limits, which is 10% or about 150 million kgs of milk solids from their base of about 1.5 billion, and a maximum of 50% per farm still. So look, we think this is great, but we remain still very sort of concerned that there's 1.5 billion more kgs of milk solids in the New Zealand market that won't be able to be captured, under the Fonterra sort of regime. So what else? What else is complementary? What else can we be doing to help support the market? And I think we're going to see a lot more of that happening coming through. A lot more education and awareness, which is really great. So, Fonterra themselves are going to be out in the market talking about these new products, getting people aware of what they are and what they aren't, building up a base level understanding, which we expect to lead to more conversations in the market. Farmers seeking to understand what the changes are, what are the impacts on my farm, and then really sort of that question of who do I talk to? Where do I go to now? And we really believe that as the rural finance professional, we believe you are well placed to provide that role. And so I'd love to talk you through that. Perhaps Ty, if you want to sort of take it from here.
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for that sort of quick introduction to sort of the market. I think you summarized it really nicely just then, in the sense, I think the risk management conversation as a whole is actually just another extension of the overall planning conversation we're having with our customers. It all starts with understanding what the customer's trying to achieve, what their goals are, but then taking those goals and that plan, actually putting it on a page and understanding what the numbers mean. What's their break even, what's their margin that they're trying to achieve. And what we're already doing this, we're doing these plans with our customers. We're calculating those break evens. We're reviewing that throughout the season and seeing what levers we need to change or what actions the farmer needs to do, and then adjusting the plan again. So we're already doing that. The risk management piece of that conversation just slots in really nicely, and a good way to kind of visualize that is with this sort of this diagram, and that is, once we understand those goals and we understand the numbers, we can actually then go into another level of detail and we go, actually, where is the risk in that plan? What's the reliance on the milk price? Are there large costs like interest or feed and fert that the customer can be doing to help create some certainty or stability in that plan? But it's also understanding their own personal risk appetite. And we can do this all out of our standard or out of our current conversation that we're having. But then being able to, like I say, taking that understanding of the risk and actually, giving them or guidance around what sort of tools are available, whether it be Fonterra or other products ourselves. What is it? And then we can actually start to look at how do we implement something a little bit more formal. Remove the emotion going forward, and how do we recreate something that can be almost a template for them going forward. So we do really see it as being more of that sort of holistic conversation as opposed to an isolated sort of piece of work that's very different to what's already been done. And I'll put this one up here because I think at the end of the day, it's all integrated with everything that's already been done within Figured. We have all this farm production data that gets pulled in from the milk suppliers. We have access to the sort of regional benchmarking, so we can give customers an idea of, hey, how do they sit compared to their peers? And then even being able to use that data to say, how can we get better access to capital? And I think that risk management piece just slots so nicely into this overall piece. So we've kind of heard about the sort of the market and the challenges to date. So the question that's probably all on front of mind is what's Figured trying to do in this space, and why do they think we can sort of address these challenges that industry is facing? And I think it all comes down to sort of three key values, and that is simplicity, accessibility, and flexibility. And that's what we've done in partnership with StoneX. So before I kind of get into the sort of actual product itself within Figured, I'll do probably a bit of a handover to Matt to kind of, one, introduce StoneX and who they are if you're not familiar, but also actually go into a little bit of the detail in terms of what is this particular product we're talking about. Over to you, mate.
Good morning, everyone. So StoneX, for those who aren't familiar, is a large global financial services company. Very much has its roots in agricultural commodity hedging. Started with almost over 100 years ago now, actually, with milk physical sales of eggs. Actually, it was eggs, and then came through to grain, and the business really grew in terms of what was offered in the commodity space globally. So as you can see, there's a lot of numbers there around our business and all this sort of stuff. But I think the really cool thing to me is that commodity risk management remains at the core of a business of that size to this day. And will remain so going forward. So that's probably enough about us. We'll skip through. So we're really, really excited by this Figured milk price protection. When we first met the guys at Figured, we talked a lot about what we thought was missing in this market. And in my opinion, Chris touched on it before. You had some tools available. They weren't hitting the mark, in our opinion, in some regards. The futures exchange traded products can be a great tool for the right person, and fixed milk price is also a great tool for the right person. But we thought there was just a part of that market that was underserviced in terms of something a little bit more simplified than exchange traded products and a lot more flexible than fixed milk price. So the important part for us was actually marrying together this idea of being able to analyze your cost side of your business, impact of hedging, because I think that part at times is it's not that that farmers don't know how to do it. It's probably more so that they actually don't take the time to do it. And as Ty said before, emotion starts to creep in when you see a $9 milk price, and then 6 months later, if it trades to 10, they really wish they didn't sell at 9. So having a good understanding is really important. So what we've come up with here is via StoneX Trading and obviously in partnership with Figured, is we have put together Figured milk price protection. So what it is you can secure a minimum milk price, you pay an upfront premium, you set a price floor at a level at which you're comfortable. You then let that ride for the season. If the market drops, you will be paid out the difference between the market price and your price floor. And if the market rises, you have full participation in the upside, meaning there's no fears about missing out on higher milk prices. So yeah, it's probably easiest to visualize the impact of it on a slide. So to be very clear here, Figured milk price protection is a put option. There is puts are a beautifully simple tool. I think as soon as you start saying options, people kind of have this knee-jerk reaction of going, well, that sounds complicated. But in reality, and to be honest, they can be at times if you're selling puts, but farmers are buyers of puts, and therefore there's a premium paid up front. So in this case, we're talking about 60,000 kilos of milk solids. We're hedging using a 950 put. Obviously, bear with me here. This chart is a little bit old, so the numbers aren't particularly relevant to where 25 is today. But 60,000 kilos, 950 put or price floor. So you can see that dashed line there is your price floor. You paid 11 cents premium for that. So that cost of establishing that price floor was 6,600 Kiwi. That is paid upfront upon entry of the position. In this case, you hedged in December 2024. You let that roll for the season, right? So as we move through the season and we come through to settlement in September 25, in this case, the market settles at $9.03. The cash flow of that from there is you've made 47 cents on your put. Your net milk price is 60,000, and then you take your 47 cents times that by 60,000, you deduct the cost of your premium, which is 11 cents per kilo on 60,000, meaning your total profit on your put is 21,600. You would then have to think about there is every chance, and hopefully I liken it to this is not an insurance product, but I do draw similarities to insurance at times where it's important to remember when you're buying a put option, you would be the happiest guy around if you bought puts at a level that ensured a good margin over break even every year and they were never in the money. Because it means you're making a lot of money, you're participating in upside, and you're actually making more margin over break even. It's sort of like you don't buy insurance on your house and hope it burns down. So that's, I think, a good way to think about it. The key requirements for this product is that you have to be a wholesale investor. So there are various ways you can qualify for that. One of the key ones is net assets greater than 5 million. We require, some of you are probably familiar with the FMA Safe Harbor wholesale investor form. So that's a self-certification. Farmers, in theory, can go in and just tick the box and say, yep, got $5 million of net assets, trust me. So what we're actually requiring in addition to that is an accountant's signature on that as well, just saying, look, they are in fact a wholesale investor and they do meet the categories, the requirements that they've said they do. So I think, yeah, it's obviously good for us from a peace of mind perspective. And I think it's really important as well that throughout this whole process, we have really tried to be very clear that we want accountants and advisors involved in this as much as possible. And so that is also a step to ensure that, accountants and advisors are aware that their clients are doing this and setting up this account. The other piece is for the onboarding, while we've really simplified it and it is really easy, especially compared to an exchange traded account, you do need a legal entity identifier number. So I guess a little bit of context there. Essentially, when the regulators were sifting through the rubble after the GFC in 2008, and they were trying to figure out after some of these banks imploded who owned what positions where, it was very difficult. So essentially, an LEI allows regulators and things to see who owns what, and it's very easy to piece it together. So those are probably the two things that you need to get on board.
Awesome. Thanks for that. So with that being said, I think the next logical place to start is actually, well, what does this actually look like in Figured? And we've put together a little bit of a storyline. So hopefully this all is showing okay. Can I just get confirmation? Perfect. So like I said, taking the sort of the concept of the put option, how do we keep it simple and accessible? The easiest way is actually let's just embed it straight into Figured. So milk price protection, that feature is now in the navigational bar on the left-hand side for all owner-operator dairy farms. The reason being owner-operator is, again, trying to tailor it to those sort of the customers who already meet the wholesale investor criteria. Last thing we want to do is be putting this in front of a sort of a contract milker and getting them excited only to shoot them down. If they meet the criteria, I mean, we can turn it on manually for them, but just as a starting position, this is where we've landed. That being said, look, I think the key thing here is, we take it's very personalized. We take the actual farm production and financial data. We bring in live market pricing from StoneX. And then it's a super easy model that, you can customize and tailor to find or to model out different scenarios based on those other two things, and then understanding also the customer's risk appetite. So we'll just keep clicking through. Just want to preface this. All the data is pulled through based on the GDS settings and Figured. One thing to be mindful of, the production data is pulled from the milk tracker. So if that's not accurate, it will pull through as a 0. And the costs are pulled from a P&L on a cash basis. And again, we're looking at this on a cash break even. That's on total operating costs and total non-operating costs. So it does exclude debt repayments and then other sort of capital movements. That being said, you can jump in here and override these numbers and tailor them. So if it was pulling through incorrectly, or you're wanting to model out a different scenario, maybe the customer doesn't have a forecast, you could take last year's actuals and actually just have a conversation with them and just adjust those numbers as appropriate. The screen's kind of broken down into two visuals. First, we have sort of the metrics, the key metrics summary, and that's where we focus on where does the current break-even sit, what is the revised break-even after a position's been taken to implement some protection, but also what is that upfront cost? Matt mentioned earlier that, hey, you select a price, you pay that upfront cost. There's no other sort of hidden cost to be aware of. So just in all transparency, we calculate that based on those levers straight away. So just helping make that really clear. Just wanted to kind of call out how that calculation works when we talk about the sort of revised break-even risk. What that's doing is it's actually looking at the blended impact. What's the blended position of the protected milk income and then the non-protected income? So if you've set a price floor at $9 for 50% of your solids, we're actually looking at the risk profile of that other 50%, and what does the milk price have to drop to have that blended effect. So that's what that calculation's doing. But you can hover over those formulas, and it'll spit out the numbers. You can check it and make sure we're being honest. Cool. As I mentioned earlier, look, you can adjust those numbers as you need and model out different scenarios. So it's not like you're having to go back into Figured and change the planning grid or change the tracker. Just do it right here. Have that conversation, and then if you need to make changes, you can always go back. Perfect. The second tab was the sort of the visual way, and like, I don't know about everyone else, but personally, sometimes it's just so much easier just to actually say, hey, can I just get a really clear image of what is that impact? And that's what we've done with this chart. So we're just visualizing how does break even and margin differ at varying milk prices. We'll go into some detail later, but that orange line you see horizontally across the chart, that's the current the total cost that was specified further up on the screen. And that yellow line is actually factoring in, hey, what is the cost of the premium, and let's have a revised costs. I'm not sure if you can see my mouse on the screen, but
Yep.
what we're saying here is, the current break even is just under 725 on a current position, but by implementing a level of protection using milk price protection at I think it's at $9 at 50%, the milk price would have to drop to just above sort of 550 in this scenario before they're at risk of not achieving that sort of break-even position. So really, this green area is the risk averted. So just a really sort of clear, easy chart.
And I think, Ty, we sort of reflect back to the current sort of market where the revenue line is largely constant, and the variable line that gets moved is the orange line today. Really what we're shifting here is we're changing that first step to actually look at the revenue line and change the slope of that curve first.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah. How do we give confidence that we're not going to have to push, maintenance costs or cut back on feed or whatever it might be. Cool. That being said, again, look, this chart's super sort of dynamic. Hover over the chart and it will spit out the numbers for you, so you can get a quick indication as a what is the actual margin at those different milk prices. And that would vary depending on where you click on the chart. Cool. I talked earlier about sort of, you can sort of have this conversation about where the risk lies in the numbers, but it's also understanding what the risk appetite is, and it varies person to person based on stage in life and just personal preferences. The idea of having these sort of two levers of a minimum milk price, which is based on the pricing to the side, but also the production ratio, allows you to sort of play with those two levers to find an outcome or a position that actually, one, achieves the customer's goals, but also, fits their personal risk appetite. So you can play with those as you wish. We mentioned a little bit about the pricing from StoneX. So sort of unlike sort of the other, and just in all transparency, StoneX have got a fantastic product in the sense that they can advertise these prices on a live and current basis, and we pull that through into Figured just so that it's really clear. You're not having to do a plan and then call a broker, call Matt, and say, hey, what's the prices at this strike price? No, we just show it straight off the bat, so you can make those plans. With the StoneX product, we are able to do 3 seasons in advance using the put option. In Figured, I'm currently only showing the 26 and 27 seasons, and that's purely because technically the 25 season's still active. Given that the milk price is largely priced in, we're not showing that year. But as soon as that 25 season settles, we'll then bring in the 28 season. the cost you see on the side. So you've got the sort of the price floor here, and then the cost per milk solid. That's all inclusive. There's no hidden costs, no surprises. It factors in all the sort of brokerage fees and anything else that needs to be aware of. So the customer's not going to get stung with any other bills later on. I think the other thing too here is that, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. You have the flexibility to actually take multiple positions. You can do a varying different milk prices at different percentages, and really customize it to get an overall outcome that works. Cool, and that's just what we're kind of indicating here. You can select the different prices based on what's shown in this grid, and then that's what's available in StoneX as well. Perfect. So you can see here that we've kind of tweaked this a little bit. We've found a position that in this instance that we're comfortable with. The next step really is actually how do we participate? Keeping in mind that this is still a financial arrangement. You need to be a wholesale investor. We need to have an LEI. You need to go through AML. It's kind of like opening a bank account. How do we keep this super accessible? And the idea was using the sort of the process we've done with figured lending, the embedded lending process. We've taken that same methodology and applied it to here. So we pre-populate the application, all the data that's needed in those legal forms. They're pre-populated with what's already known and figured. We have an API with Companies Office, so if it is a company that's going through the process, if they enter that company's name correctly, it pulls all the directors, all the shareholder information in, and then it's just actually a matter of checking it and answering the last few questions that are needed. You can click through there and say, yep, I'm consent to this information being shared with StoneX. And what the outcome will be is that you'll get an email from Figured saying, hey, here's the completed onboarding forms. Please check they're correct. Sign here and return them. And what that does, that just shortens that whole process and just makes life a whole lot easier. Look, wouldn't be a Figured feature if we didn't make sure there's some FAQs in here. Appreciate this is new for some people. So we have some frequently asked questions, just a little bit of a high level summary in terms of, how do I get started? How do I qualify? What is the product itself? Who's StoneX? But that being said, look, you can also touch base with Figured support, the little green bubble. Ask any questions there. You can reach out to myself. Any curly questions or anything too complicated, we can always put you in touch with StoneX as well. I'm sure Matt wouldn't mind. Fantastic. So look, I think the key summary here is, actually best place to be is just get match fit. Chris mentioned earlier the market. It's one tweet away from changing. Best thing you can do is actually just get your clients registered with a free account, so that they are, ready and able to act on a decision when they're ready, or if it's appropriate. Perfect. Let's come back to this one. Cool. One last piece I just want to highlight early is, look, appreciating that, and one of those sort of challenges was sort of the cost and cash implications. The Figured lending and powered by Heartland has stepped in to help remove any sort of friction that there may be. Appreciating that, if the upfront cost was a challenge for a customer, hey, we can actually fund this on a 12-month sort of almost like a premium loan, which we can then actually spread over and actually align to their cash flows. So just bank agnostic, quick, simple onboarding process and pre-approval, and very flexible in terms of how that works. And it's not designed to impact the sort of existing banking relationships, but just to help remove any friction and ensure that customer can participate. Fantastic. Lowy, did you want to kind of wrap it up?
Yeah, look, and I think sort of circling back to why is Figured seeing sort of a market gap, and what role can Figured play in helping address that gap, alongside the financial professionals supporting the farming team. Really that's sort of what we're stepping into here, is how do we get more connected to the actual financials on the plan, rather than sort of market references to break evens, actually understand the actual farm's break even, and understand the impact for their farm. I mean, each farm will be different in terms of debt profiles and interest costs, and so every farm is going to have a unique profile, but also have a unique risk appetite, within the farm themselves. And so really connecting to the individual personal plan, we think so, that's sort of a key part of that. What we liked about the product with StoneX was the cost certainty. It's a one-time upfront cost, so you know what you're paying. And we heard that sort of cash worry, and we felt we could actually help provide an option there. An option is probably the wrong word in this context, but provide a mechanism for people to be able to spread those premiums with Figured lending through the year. And we do that in a way where we can match at an individual level those repayments to match the individual farm's cash profile. So again, very sort of personalized there. The product itself is, we think, that worry about missing out, these cycles changing, the ability to sort of have a product that's akin to an insurance vehicle, really, but allow you to participate in the upside. So if you're looking at a put option at 9.50, and it costs you the 11 cents, what we referenced earlier. If the price goes to 10.50, then you actually participate 100% at 10.50. So you're not missing out on that upside, but you're protecting your downside risk and fundamentally getting increased certainty around your margin position, which we loved. And then of course, a really essential part we felt was, how do we get sort of access to these products more efficiently, and how do we build them into the planning conversation that professionals are having with farmers today. And our experience with the embedded lending product that we're doing with contract and share milkers, and shortly announcing some new exciting extensions to that as well, really sort of highlighted that we can take what was a complex sort of process and make it really simple. In that case, it's sort of 15-minute applications approved within 24 hours. But those principles of really embedding that into the workflows, and at the points where the decisions and the conversations are being held, we felt was really important. So we stepped back and said, well, how should Figured have a role? What role does that play? And then how do we ensure that we build out and increase those planning conversations that we can have across the industry, is really why we've stepped into this so firmly. And having a partner like StoneX, globally a leader in the space, is great. And having other people in the industry step in and recognise and make changes is also great. We think there's going to be a much higher increased awareness across the market of what's available, and we think ultimately that's fantastic for the industry. No webinar would be complete, I'm told, without an offer at the end. So look, we are keen to really hold that principle that this is an extension of the planning conversation. And for those farms that aren't using the Farm Manager product today, they lodge an application through Figured on Farm Reporter, and we'll get set up on Farm Manager, then lodge an application. We'll provide 3 months free Farm Manager use, really give them the opportunity to step in and build out their plans, understand their break-evens and their forecast position, and have that conversation with that data flowing through, which we think is a key part of the service offering, of sort of extending the planning experience into these risk management components. And then Matt mentioned the LEI requirement, which does carry a fee to get registered each year, and we don't want to put any more barriers in the way, and so Figured will actually pay that registration fee as well, for anybody who comes on board. And it doesn't mean you have to then do any trades, but it means that you're match fit and you're ready to take have the conversation. If you decide it's appropriate, then you're able to then sort of make those decisions. But you've been through the process of getting onboarded, and you've gone through the AML requirements to be able to respond if appropriate. Yeah, so look, that's it. I did promise we would allow some time for Q&A at the end, and I do see, Ty, we've got some Q&A questions coming through.
I can't actually see the questions on my screen, sorry, mate. So,
Stop the bottom. So,
but you,
Tony, in my experience, the firm selling the price protection products were not good at explaining what complex financial arrangements actually work. Also, many farmers were burned with interest rate swaps, and as a consequence, are wary. And I think absolutely, and I think that experience in the past has been passed through generations. Matt, you've had this conversation before. You might want to elaborate on what your views on that are.
Um, I think we were very intentional when we were putting this product together around exactly what we were going to offer. We have every capability to be offering swaps or anything else really. And what we decided was we would only offer long puts to farmers for two reasons. Number one, they, as far as a tool goes for farmers, they are very, very simple. And it's hard to go too far wrong, right? Like the whole platform is full of guardrails when they're executing trades. You can't go short a put, for example. You can't sell a put unless you're already long in that same strike. So you can close out. But we've been very intentional with what and how we've done this. And yeah, I mean, I think it's all we can do really outside, alongside a really, really good education campaign and yeah, access to support whenever people need it. But I hear you on interest rate swaps. It was a bit of a different beast, and it's kind of the bane of my existence, to be honest. But yeah, it's hopefully this product will work out extremely differently to the interest rate swaps.
And I see Richard's Wheeler's got a comment there around sort of the checks and balances around making sure that we don't have farmers end up sort of in an overhedged position in that respect. And I think our view is part of our firm intent is making sure that we don't end up with people running off and taking trades without having the right financial sort of advice connection. Probably advice is wrong, but more connection into their decisioning. So having the accountants sign off on the fact that the information's there, that they've been through sort of a discussion with the farmer, we think is an important part of that process. And there's a related question, I think, there, which is around, will the milk tracker be able to model both StoneX and Fonterra going forward? Not today, unfortunately. But yeah, absolutely, we see that as a clear improvement that we will look to make in the future at the right time. Being able to get that sort of blended rate into the milk tracker, we think would be a valuable addition. Firstly, we want people to start increasing their understanding and the awareness of the product, and over time start to use the product more. And then as we do that, and we actually have the blended rates coming through, then that would make sense to bring that through into the figured report.
I think, Matt, it might pay actually just talking about that overhedged position, maybe just again kind of maybe touch on or another reason why the long puts are actually such a great product, in the sense that that risk is slightly mitigated to only the upfront cost. Yeah.
Yeah, for overhedging, a big problem you have with if you take futures for example there, and same with a swap, right? Any loss that you have on your financial position, assuming that your futures contract settles to the same price as your physical milk check, will be offset by your physical cash flow, i.e., you lose 10 cents on futures and make 10 cents more than your futures price on your actual physical milk. You pay for the 10-cent loss on the futures with the 10-cent gain, meaning your net price ends up back at where you sold the futures. That's how they work. With a put, so again, sorry, you run into trouble there. If you end up overhedged, you don't have the physical cash flow to offset any potential losses on the futures. Where that differs slightly is you're not actually, with a put, your maximum loss is realized upon entry of the trade. So if you don't have the cash available at the time to pay the premium, then you won't be able to open the trade, right? Unless you lend for it. But the idea with the put is it's hard to the impact from overhedging is materially smaller than it is with futures. And yeah, I think the hard thing for us is it's hard. We would love to be able to do it, but we're not in a position now where I can say, right, you're limited to only doing X amount. But I think, again, to Ty's point, we just think it's massively important to have accountants and advisors involved across the board, hence the signature on the wholesale form, and also probably why we're generally just so excited about this partnership with Figured because yeah, I think that guidance, and obviously you guys aren't advisors, financial advisors. I'm not a financial advisor, but you can guide conversation and lead, kind of help have discussions with them, with clients to arrive to the right kind of conclusions for them. So, yeah.
The question on can we use two different services, i.e., if they've used Fonterra fixed milk price, can they use milk price protection? And yes is the answer in the same sort of context. And we think having complementary options that are out in the market, we think is a huge positive. Bear in mind that Fonterra limit again to that 10% of their base. So absolutely you can. How was the put price established? Matt, do you want to maybe a quick reference to that?
Yeah. So we have market makers. So I guess the reason why we're able to put that pricing together across multiple seasons, is because we have a wide kind of range of clients on the commercial side doing various things, to manage their own risk. So as part of that, we've sort of brought together a lot of those clients, created a competitive market where they can offer puts, knowing that they're going to come on this app, and yeah, go from there. So that's essentially what it is.
Okay. Do you have a certain figured plan to apply for this? And is there a cutoff for purchasing? Yeah, so applications will need to be done through the farm manager, but as mentioned, that would be it would provide a free upgrade for 3 months for people who lodge the application. So you'll be automatically taken up to the premium product, which will allow you to do the planning component as opposed to farm reported. And is there a cutoff for purchasing? No. We're going to roll this through till the end of June for that offer.
And I think in terms of just maybe touching on that question a little bit more in terms of cutoff of purchasing a put, to my earlier point, look, there are still options available for the current season that we're in right now. So, it's not like you're not having to hedge all of this before the season even starts. And quite often you don't actually see that. You'll see that people potentially will layer it in as they get more certainty on their costs as the season progresses. So, you have plenty of flexibility there.
Oh, there's a question there on the
The
additional.
other thing, just quickly on that, is it's a very different product to fixed milk price in that it's a lot more flexible. So this is available every day during market hours. You can execute at any time. And so the question there around can you use fixed milk price and figured price protection? Yes, you absolutely can. And I think a very sensible application in some cases can be people, for example, get scaled on fixed milk price. They obviously had a demand for certainty of that milk price in some form, and they can very easily open an account and get that position fixed or hedged with a price floor through this. So definitely not mutually exclusive, and they go hand in hand.
Ty, there's a question there on sort of the figured lending, the additional cost of spreading the premium.
Yes, sure. So look, that loan product that we have available is the interest rate on that is 10.95%. That is I believe a floating, or there is a floating option as well, but I believe there's also the 12-month fixed rate. We'll get some more clarity on that, and we'll advertise those rates and within Figured itself, so that you know exactly what you're looking at. So yeah, look, on a rough idea, you know, if you're looking at a $50,000 upfront premium cost, you'd be spending an extra about just over $5,000 in interest to spread that cost. So it is just the only additional cost would be the cost of interest. I actually got into the questions. I can see that there's one on here about who takes the position when there's the farm owner has a share milker on. Just to Matt's point earlier, look, this isn't directly correlated to your actual production. It's not like StoneX is talking to your supplier and tracking how many solids you're doing. It is very complementary. If both parties met the wholesale investor criteria, they could both take their own positions. At the end of the day, we expect that in most cases, it'd be the farm owner who's taking the position on their piece, or potentially we have seen this before as well, where there's an agreement between the share milker and the farm owner, and they're doing a position collectively where potentially it's the farm owner who's the registered party and is effectively got the put option in their name, but there's a separate agreement between them where they are, you know, be using this as a farming group. So hopefully that's that one.
And probably unlikely, right? And really, what gets surfaced and figured as well is only available to farm owners. So farm owner operators, or farm owners with share milkers, or farmer. Yeah. So it's actually, you have to meet that sort of ownership threshold field setting and figured for it to be surfaced up. Otherwise, you won't see it. So if you have clients that aren't seeing this available in figured, you need to check that setting to make sure that ownership status is correct.
One of the wholesale, just raising this earlier, one of the wholesale investor criteria, as per the FMA, is the investor piece. So you could either be considered a large customer, which is turnover or net assets greater than 5 million, but there's also a separate criteria, which is investments held greater than 750,000. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that does include Fonterra shares. You know, so potentially a customer might be more leveraged with the bank in terms of their debt profile, but they have those shares and they might be able to meet it in that criteria as well, just so you're aware.
There's the final question for now is, do you book the put on the Figured platform or on the StoneX app? Which is a good question. So today we create the application within Figured, which gets the onboarding set up, and you can book the put on the StoneX app itself. You know, the intention would be for us to integrate that back into Figured as well. So yeah, we have a lot of interest behind this, and that will obviously drive, you know, a lot of those future improvements again back into Figured to sort of streamline those workflows even further. But yeah, but today get onboarded with the application within Figured, and then you're able to trade within the StoneX app.
Yeah, I'd like to, kind of say, emphasize that point in the sense that, you know, we do stand behind this in the sense that, you know, we see the value in it. We recognize the conversations are becoming more common, and we want to ensure that our farmers that we're working with are informed, you know, making some good decisions. But at the same time, you know, we're looking to continue to build out more functionality in this, and there's a reason we had to start somewhere, and this is where we have, and the reason being is we wanted it available in market right before this planning season, so that it can be utilized. Cool.
Good.
Couple last questions I see that have come through, which we'll quickly just touch on. How long does it take to set up the StoneX app account? Once we've got you through that sort of onboarding process and AML signed off, you'll be sent an email from StoneX and Figured, which will give you the link to the sort of the StoneX trading app, and you'll be able to trade immediately. We're working to cut that time frame down as quick as possible, and I say the perfect world would be that we'd be able to get it down within 48 hours, and we're going to continue to turn that around as quickly as possible. At the moment, it's dependent on, you know, can we get all the right information for AML, and can we get all the forms signed in the right places. So it is really on us and the customer to make sure we supplied the right information, and that it's through that process as fast as possible.
And Figured's intent on making that part as frictionless as possible. So if we think about the embedded lending that we do today, these are sort of 15-minute applications to get through, and we want to get to that sort of experience. So we're starting and we're learning and we're adapting, but the goal is to make it as simple to onboard as possible.
Great. Once the application is approved, does the cost and income automatically flow through to the forecast, or do you need to go back and add that into the planning grid? Great question. At the moment, we don't have the functionality to pull that position through, but we are working with the team, and I say it might be something we'll roll out at a later date, along with the sort of the milk tracker and all those other sort of cool things that we want to be doing. Perfect.
Very good. I see we're bang on time, so I think we probably need to call it. But thank you everyone for your time and in attendance, and yeah, we're really excited. I think leave you with a parting message, I guess, is sort of get yourself and your clients match fit. Build the awareness, not only what we're doing here, but what the industry's doing, I think, which is great. And yeah, let's change the conversation really for the industry, and build in a bit more sort of certainty into the discussions that that farmers are having. So yeah, look, we'll leave it there. Reach out to myself, Ty, or Matt, any further questions. Otherwise, yeah, look forward to hearing your experiences and how you go, and we'll go from there.
Fantastic. Thank you all. Appreciate it. Bye.
Everyone.